Taeyang stood at his usual position by the sink, washing dishes while keeping his attention on Hana. 3 days had passed since he followed her to the lower levels. He needed to understand if her kindness was real or just a performance, something she did to feel good about herself. He had seen many beings do charitable acts for their own pride or reputation. He needed to test her true nature. The restaurant was busy during lunch hour. Aliens from dozens of species filled the tables eating noodles and dumplings. Hana moved between them efficiently, taking orders and delivering food with a smile. She treated everyone the same, whether they were wealthy merchants or poor laborers. Taeyang noticed she never showed favoritism. During her break, Hana sat in the back alley behind the restaurant. She ate a small bowl of rice and vegetables, the cheapest meal on the menu. Taeyang had learned from the other workers that Hana sent most of her money back to Earth. Her younger brother and sister lived there, in the reconstruction zones where cities were still being rebuilt after the First Contact War. Her brother, Park Dayun, could not walk anymore because of injuries from a Velnoth attack. He needed expensive medical care that basic government support did not cover. Taeyang decided to begin his first test. Using his powers, he created a wallet and filled it with credit chips worth 10,000 credits. That was enough money to pay for several months of medical treatment. He placed the wallet near the trash bins where Hana would find it when she returned to work. 15 minutes later, Hana came back from her break. She noticed the wallet immediately and picked it up. She opened it and her eyes went wide when she saw the credit chips inside. Taeyang watched her carefully. He saw her hands shake slightly. He knew what she must be thinking. This money could change her life. It could help her brother. Nobody would know if she kept it. Hana stood there for a full minute, staring at the wallet. Then she closed it firmly and walked straight to the restaurant manager's office. She knocked on the door and went inside. Through the walls, Taeyang could hear their conversation using his enhanced senses. "Manager Kim, I found this wallet outside. It has a lot of money in it. We should turn it in to station security or put it in lost and found." The manager, a middle-aged human man, looked surprised. "Hana, that's very honest of you. Most people would keep it. Are you sure? I know you need money for your brother." "It's not mine," Hana said simply. "Someone lost it and they're probably worried. They might need it more than me." The manager nodded with approval and took the wallet to register it with lost and found. Hana went back to work as if nothing had happened. Taeyang felt something stir in his ancient heart. She had passed the first test. But he needed to be certain. One test was not enough. 2 days later, Taeyang arranged his second test. He used his influence to ensure that a Velnoth diplomat would eat at Earth's comfort. The diplomat's name was Representative Kethvar, and he was known for his rude behavior and his open dislike of humans. He arrived during dinner service with 2 assistants. Hana was assigned to their table. Taeyang watched from the kitchen as she approached with menus and water. Kethvar did not even look at her. He spoke in Velnoth, a hissing language that his translator device converted to universal standard. "I suppose even humans can boil water and make simple food. Bring me your least offensive dish." Hana smiled politely. "Our spicy noodle soup is very popular. Would you like to try that?" Kethvar finally looked at her. His yellow reptilian eyes were cold. "You're very calm for a human serving a Velnoth. Don't you know what my people did to yours? We burned your colonies. We killed your weak soldiers. You should be trembling with hatred right now." The entire restaurant went quiet. Everyone was watching. Hana's smile did not change, but Taeyang could see her grip tighten slightly on her notepad. She took a slow breath before speaking. "I know the history, sir, and I know that war hurts everyone. But you're a customer in this restaurant, and I'm your server. Would you like the spicy noodle soup, or would you prefer something else?" Kethvar seemed disappointed that he could not provoke her. He ordered his food and continued to make rude comments throughout the meal. He complained that the noodles were too soft, that the soup was too hot, that the service was too slow. Each time Hana responded with patience and politeness. She never showed anger or frustration. When Kethvar finally left, he did not leave a tip. That was considered very insulting in human culture. Hana simply cleared the table and moved on to the next customers. One of her co-workers, a young man named Lee Minho, came over to her. "Hana, how do you do it? If a Velnoth spoke to me like that, I would have thrown the soup in his face." Hana shrugged while wiping down the table. "Getting angry won't change anything. It won't bring back the people we lost. It won't heal the people who were hurt. And it definitely won't make my shift easier. So why waste energy on anger?" Minho shook his head in amazement. You're too good for this world, Hana. You're too good for this whole galaxy. That evening, Taeyang prepared his third and final test. He wanted to see how far her compassion truly reached. He disguised himself as an elderly homeless man, using his powers to create the appearance of sickness and weakness. He positioned himself near the restaurant's entrance, sitting on the ground with a cup for donations. Most people walked past him without looking. A few dropped small coins into his cup. When Hana's shift ended and she walked out, she stopped immediately when she saw him. She knelt down beside him, concern on her face. "Sir, are you okay? Do you need medical help?" Taeyang in his disguise coughed weakly. "Just hungry, miss." "Haven't eaten in 2 days." Hana did not hesitate. She opened her bag and took out the small meal she had bought for herself. It was just a rice bowl with vegetables and a piece of fish. Her dinner. She handed it to him with a gentle smile. "Here, please eat this. There's a shelter on level 8 that gives free meals. Do you know how to get there?" "I can't walk that far," Taeyang said, testing her further. Hana thought for a moment, then took out her personal communicator. She called the shelter and arranged for someone to come pick up the homeless man. She stayed with him for 20 minutes until the shelter worker arrived, talking to him kindly and making sure he was comfortable. Before she left, Taeyang asked her, "Why help an old man you don't know? I might be a criminal. I might be lying to you." Hana looked at him with kind eyes. "Maybe. But if there's even a chance you really need help, then it's worth the risk. Besides, we're all just trying to survive out here. We should help each other when we can." She walked away into the night, heading toward the lower levels with her bag full of leftover bread. She had given away her own dinner, but she still had food for the refugee children. They came first in her mind. Taeyang dropped his disguise once she was gone. He stood up straight, no longer appearing old or sick. The shelter worker who had arrived looked at him in confusion, but Taeyang simply walked away. He had seen enough. 3 tests. 3 moments where Hana could have chosen herself over others. 3 times she chose compassion over self-interest. She returned money when she desperately needed it. She showed kindness to people who hurt her species. She gave away her own meal to a stranger who might be lying. Taeyang returned to his hidden ship and accessed the galactic networks. He searched for more information about Park Hana. He found records from Earth from before she came to the station. Her parents had died in the First Contact War when Velnoth ships bombed their city. She was 16 years old when it happened. She took care of her younger siblings alone for 3 years before finding work on New Seoul Station. Her brother Daeun had been injured during a raid. He was paralyzed from the waist down. Her sister, Park Ji-woo, was only 12 years old. Hana worked 3 jobs to support them both. She sent 90% of her earnings back to Earth. She lived in the cheapest housing on the station, ate the smallest meals, and owned almost nothing. Yet despite all her losses, despite all her suffering, despite having every reason to be angry at the galaxy, she chose to feed hungry children. Even Velnoth children. Even the children of the species that destroyed her family. Taeyang sat in his throne chamber aboard his flagship. The room was vast, decorated with treasures from 1,000 worlds. He had everything. Power, wealth, respect, immortality. But he could not remember the last time he had given something precious away without expecting anything in return. A message came through on his private channel. It was from the Galactic Unity Council. They were holding an emergency session in 1 week. The topic, what to do about humanity. Several powerful species were pushing for sanctions and restrictions. Some even whispered about preemptive containment. Taeyang had to decide where he stood. His vote would carry enormous weight. He could support humanity or condemn them. He had come here looking for reasons to contain them, to limit their expansion, to keep them from disrupting the established order. Instead, he found Park Hana, one ordinary human woman who was teaching him what true strength looked like. The Galactic Unity Council chamber was unlike anything most beings would ever see. It was a perfect sphere 5 miles in diameter, floating in space near the galactic core. The walls were transparent, showing the stars beyond. Inside, representatives from 847 species floated in assigned positions, held in place by gravity fields. At the very center was a platform where those giving testimony would stand. Taeyang arrived in his full ceremonial form. His dragon body stretched 300 feet long, scales gleaming with inner light. His presence alone made the chamber feel smaller. Other supreme rulers were there too. The Crystalline Collective sent their representative, a being made of living diamond. The Swarm Queen appeared as a cloud of intelligent insects. The Void Watchers sent an avatar of pure darkness, and the Machine Consensus manifested as a sphere of rotating geometric shapes. These 5 powers rarely attended council meetings in person. Their presence meant this session was truly important. The fate of an entire species was being decided today. Ambassador Lee Yuna represented humanity. She was a woman in her 50s with gray hair and tired eyes. She had been a soldier during the First Contact War, and she carried those scars with her. She stood alone on the central platform, surrounded by hundreds of alien beings who would judge her entire species. Taeyang could see her hands shaking slightly, but her voice was steady when she spoke. Honored Council, I stand before you on behalf of humanity. We know we are young. We know we have much to learn. We ask only for the chance to prove ourselves worthy of joining this galactic community. Councillor Vexmar, the Velnoth representative, immediately stood up. He was an old male with battle scars across his face. The humans ask for a chance they do not deserve. Let me present the evidence of why humanity must be restricted. Holographic displays appeared around the chamber. They showed images from Earth's history. Ancient wars, medieval battles, world wars with millions dead. They showed the violence and cruelty humans had inflicted on each other for thousands of years. Then the images shifted to more recent times, showing human expansion into space. Ships armed with weapons, colonies built in contested zones, border disputes with other species. Humans have been spacefaring for only 60 years, Vexmar said. In that short time, they have been involved in 12 military conflicts, 27 border disputes, and countless trade violations. They refuse to follow established protocols. They form alliances with species who were enemies just years before. They are unpredictable, emotional, and dangerous. More evidence appeared. Statistics about human psychology, showing their capacity for violence and tribalism. Reports from other species about human behavior. Complaints from established galactic powers about human expansion into their territory. But most dangerous of all, Vexmar continued, is their emotional instability. Humans form bonds with other species too quickly. They make alliances based on feelings rather than logic. They forgive enemies within a generation. This makes them unpredictable. We cannot trust beings who change their loyalties so easily. We cannot allow a species this chaotic to spread unchecked across the galaxy. Representatives from dozens of species voiced their agreement. The evidence seemed overwhelming. Humans were aggressive, unpredictable, and potentially dangerous. Many species had already decided to vote for strict sanctions, limiting where humans could travel and trade. Ambassador Lee Yuna tried to defend her species. Yes, we have a violent history. Yes, we are still learning. But we are trying to change. We are trying to be better. Trying is not enough, Vexmar snapped. The galaxy cannot risk waiting to see if humans will grow out of their aggressive nature. We must act now before they become a true threat. The vote was about to begin. It looked like humanity would be severely restricted, possibly even quarantined to their own solar system. Then Taeyang moved to the center platform. His presence silenced everyone immediately. I request permission to speak, he said. His voice was calm but carried absolute authority. The Dragon Monarch may speak, the council chairman announced. Taeyang's massive form coiled in the center of the chamber. Every eye was on him. I came to New Sol Station 1 month ago in disguise. I wanted to understand humanity for myself, not through reports or statistics. I wanted to see what they were really like when they thought no one important was watching. He began to tell Hana's story. He described finding her taking leftover bread, following her to the lower levels, discovering she was feeding refugee children, including Velnoth. He told them about her background, how she lost her parents to the Velnoth attacks, how her brother was crippled. This woman had every reason to hate the Velnoth, Taeyang said. By the logic we use in this chamber, she should have wanted revenge. She should have refused to help Velnoth children. That would be normal. That would be expected. But she did not do what was expected. He described the test he had given her, the wallet full of money she returned, the rude Velnoth diplomat she served with kindness, the homeless stranger she fed with her own meal. And when I revealed myself, when Commander Zefkor tried to kill her for protecting refugee children, do you know what she did? She asked me to spare his life. She showed mercy to someone who was about to murder her. The chamber was completely silent. Taeyang continued. Councillor Vexmar says humans are dangerous because they forgive too easily. Because they form bonds with former enemies. Because they choose emotion over logic. I say those are not weaknesses. Those are exactly what this galaxy needs. He turned to face Vexmar directly. You call humans unpredictable because they refuse to submit to established hierarchies. I call that dignity. You fear them because they change their minds about enemies within years instead of centuries. I call that evolution. You want to restrict them because they do not follow the patterns you expect. I call that innovation. Taiyang's voice grew stronger. Every species in this council achieved spaceflight through unity of their own kind first. Humans reach for the stars while still divided among themselves. Every species here built empires through conquest of weaker species. Humans built theirs while still learning not to conquer each other. They made it to space while still crawling out of their own darkness. He gestured to the holographic displays showing human wars. You show me their violence as evidence they are dangerous. I see proof they are growing. 3,000 years ago they killed each other with swords. 200 years ago they had weapons that could destroy their entire world, and they chose not to use them. Today they argue about borders and trade instead of launching wars of extinction. Is that not progress? Vexmar stood up angrily. Progress is irrelevant if they remain a threat. We must prevent danger before it manifests. Then you must eliminate my species too, Taiyang said coldly. The Yongsan were once as violent as humans. The Crystalline Collective exterminated 3 species before they learned control. The swarm consumed entire planets. The Velnoth themselves burned colonies of weaker species for resources. Every species in this chamber has a violent past. The only difference is we had millions of years to evolve beyond it. You want to judge humanity by comparing them to us, species who have had eons to mature. That is not justice. That is fear disguised as wisdom. The chamber erupted with discussion. Some agreed with Taiyang. Others argued against him. The debate raged for hours. Finally, Ambassador Li Yuna asked to speak again. The Dragon Monarch honors us with his defense, she said quietly. But we do not ask for special treatment. We do not claim to be perfect. We ask only for what we give to others. A chance. She looked around at all the assembled species. Judge us not only by our worst moments, but by our choice to overcome them. Yes, we are violent. Yes, we are emotional. Yes, we make mistakes. But we are trying. Every day, millions of humans like Parkhana make the choice to be better than our nature demands. We choose compassion over revenge. We choose hope over hatred. We choose to grow, her voice grew stronger. If you restrict us now, you tell us that growth does not matter. That trying is not enough. That the only thing that matters is what we were, not what we are becoming. Is that truly the message this council wants to send? Silence fell over the chamber. Even Vexmar had no immediate response. Ambassador Li Yuna continued. Parkhana is not unique among humans. There are millions like her across our worlds. People who choose every day to be kind when they could be cruel. To forgive when they could hate. To build bridges when they could build walls. That is humanity's true nature. Not the violence of our past, but the choice we make every day to move beyond it. The vote was called. It took 3 hours to count all responses. The chamber watched in tense silence as the numbers appeared. 424 species voted for sanctions. 423 voted against 1 vote difference. The closest decision in council history. Humanity would be granted probationary status. They could continue their expansion, but they would be watched closely. Any major violations would result in immediate sanctions. Ambassador Li Yuna's legs nearly gave out from relief. She had expected complete failure. A single vote victory felt like a miracle. As the council session ended and representatives began to leave, Taiyang approached her. Thank you, Your Majesty. Hana stood on the docking platform of New Seoul Station, staring at the massive ship in front of her. The Dragon Monarch's flagship was called the Eternal Dawn, and it was larger than some moons. Its hull gleamed with silver and gold, covered in symbols from languages older than most civilizations. Smaller ships flew around it like birds around a mountain. She wore her best clothes, which was just a simple gray dress she used for formal occasions. She had never expected to be invited aboard a supreme ruler's ship. The message had come 3 days after the council vote. It was brief and direct. Parkhana, I request your presence aboard the Eternal Dawn. We have much to discuss about humanity's future. A small transport ship carried her from the station to the flagship. As she got closer, she realized just how enormous it was. The docking bay alone could fit 100 normal ships. When she stepped out, she was greeted by members of the Yongsin species, the dragon monarch's own people. They appeared as humanoid beings made of soft light, their forms shifting slightly as they moved. "Welcome, honored guest," one of them said. "The monarch awaits you in the throne chamber." They led her through corridors that seemed to go on forever. The walls showed images of space, but Hana realized they were not screens. They were windows showing real views from different parts of the ship. She saw nebulas, distant galaxies, and stars being born. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The throne chamber was a circular room with a ceiling so high she could not see the top. At the center sat Taeyang in his human form, the one she knew from the restaurant. He was sitting on a simple chair instead of a grand throne. When he saw her, he smiled and stood up. "Thank you for coming, Hana. Please sit. Would you like tea?" Hana was confused. She expected formality and ceremony, not a casual invitation for tea. She sat down in the chair across from him. "Your Majesty, I don't understand. Why did you invite me here?" Taeyang poured tea into 2 cups. "It smelled like jasmine. Because I owe you an explanation. And because I need your help with something far more important than the council vote." He began to tell her a story that most beings in the galaxy did not know. 10,000 years ago, long before humans existed, there was a species called the Ancient Ones. They were the first to achieve faster-than-light travel, the first to map the galaxy. They built wonders that we still cannot fully understand. But then they disappeared. Hana sipped her tea. What happened to them? They were destroyed by something from outside our dimension. We call it the void. Every million years, a rift opens in space and entities from the void come through. They consume everything they touch. Matter, energy, even thought itself. They cannot be reasoned with or stopped by normal weapons. Taeyang's expression grew serious. The Ancient Ones fought the last void invasion. They managed to close the rift, but it cost them everything. Their entire civilization was destroyed. Before they died, they left behind records and prophecies for the species that would come after them. He pulled up a holographic display. It showed ancient writing in a language Hana did not recognize, but the translation appeared beside it. When the youngest species learns to feed their enemies' children, the great cycle will end, and the final war will be won not with weapons, but with choice. Hana read the words several times. The youngest species? You think that means humans? I know it does, Taeyang said, because I watched you do exactly what the prophecy described. You fed Velnoth children, the children of your enemies, without being asked or forced. You did it simply because it was right. He stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. The next void rift will open in 50 years. Every advanced species in the galaxy knows this. We have been preparing, building weapons, training armies, but we are terrified because every previous civilization failed. They failed because when the void came, they turned on each other. Fear made them suspicious. Old grudges made them fight among themselves while the real enemy destroyed them. Hana was starting to understand. And you think humans can help because we forgive quickly? Not just forgive, Taeyang said. You adapt. You change. You form new bonds faster than any species I have ever seen. The Ancient One's prophecy was not just about feeding enemy children. It was about what that act represents. The ability to see past species, past history, past hatred. The ability to work together even when every instinct says to fight. He turned to face her. My species, the Yongsin, we have protocols that are millions of years old. We follow the same diplomatic procedures, the same alliance structures, the same military tactics. We are powerful, but we are rigid. We cannot adapt quickly. The Velnoth still hate species they fought wars against thousands of years ago. The crystalline collective takes centuries to make simple decisions. We are all locked into patterns that served us well for millions of years. But those patterns will not work against the void. Hana set down her teacup. So you think humans, because we are still changing and learning, might be able to help you adapt? Exactly, Taeyang said. You have been spacefaring for only 60 years, but you have already done things that should take centuries. You formed alliances with the Marathi, who invaded your colonies within 5 years of peace. You trade with the Kixian, who refused to help during the First Contact War without holding grudges. You are chaos, Hana. Beautiful, unpredictable, adaptable chaos. He sat back down across from her. I did not defend humanity at the council just because Park Hana fed hungry children. I defended humanity because your species might be the key to saving all of us. If humans can teach other species to let go of old hatred, to form new bonds quickly, to choose unity over tribal instincts. We might actually survive what is coming. Hana felt overwhelmed. Your Majesty, I'm just a waitress. I fed some children because they were hungry. I don't know how to save the galaxy. That is exactly why you can, Taeyang said gently. You did not need 10,000 years of wisdom to choose compassion. You did not need political training to show mercy to Commander Zefkor. You did not need a philosophy degree to understand that feeding hungry children is more important than species loyalty. You just did what felt right. He leaned forward.
That instinct, that ability to see the person instead of the species, the need instead of the history, the future instead of the past, that is what the galaxy needs to learn.
And humans are the only ones who seem to have it naturally. Hana thought about her brother Daeun, crippled by Velnoth weapons. She thought about her parents killed in the colony burnings. She thought about all the reasons she could have chosen hatred instead of kindness, but she had not. Not because she was special, but because carrying hatred felt like carrying poison. It hurt her more than it hurt anyone else. What do you want me to do? She asked. Taeyang smiled. I want you to teach. I am creating a new program, something that has never existed before. It will bring together young soldiers, diplomats, and leaders from hundreds of species. They will train together, learn together, and hopefully learn to trust each other. But they need someone to show them how. They need a human perspective. Me? Hana said. I don't have any training. I never even finished university. You have something better than training, Taeyang said. You have the ability to make the right choice without overthinking it. You have compassion that does not require justification. And most importantly, you have already done what we need everyone else to learn. He pulled up more holographic displays. They showed facilities being built, ships being prepared, beings from different species signing agreements. I am calling it the Unity Initiative. It will be controversial. Many species will resist. But if we are going to survive the void, we need to become something we have never been before. We need to become truly unified. Hana looked at the displays. She saw Velnoth and humans training together, Morathi and Kixian working side by side, species that had been enemies for thousands of years learning to cooperate. It seemed impossible. Do you really think this can work? She asked. I do not know, Taeyang admitted. But I know the old ways will fail. We have tried the same strategies for 1,000,000 years. Military might, defensive positions, species-based alliances. They did not work for the ancient ones. They will not work for us. We need something new. We need what humans call hope. Hana stood up and walked to the window. She looked out at the endless stars. Somewhere out there, 50 years in the future, a rift would open. Monsters from another dimension would come to destroy everything. And somehow she was supposed to help stop them. It was absurd. It was impossible. But then again, everything about her life had been impossible. Surviving the loss of her parents. Taking care of her siblings alone. Making it to New Sol Station. Choosing kindness when hatred would have been easier. I'll do it, she said. I don't know if I can help, but I'll try. Taeyang stood beside her. That is all anyone can do. Try, choose, change. That is the human gift to the galaxy. Over the next weeks, Hana began her new life. She moved from New Sol Station to the Unity Initiative's main facility, a massive space station built specifically for the program. She brought her brother and sister there too. Daeun received the best medical care available, and Jiwoo was enrolled in a school with students from dozens of species. Hana's job was simple in theory, but difficult in practice. The noodle shop called Earth's Comfort sat in the lower commercial ring of New Sol Station, where the air smelled like cooking oil and recycled oxygen. The station floated in space, a massive wheel of metal and glass where thousands of alien species came to trade and do business. Humans were the newest members of this galactic community, and most other species looked down on them. Ryu Taeyang scrubbed a large pot in the kitchen sink, his hands deep in soapy water. He looked like an ordinary human man in his 30s, with tired eyes and calloused hands. His black hair fell across his forehead as he worked. The other kitchen staff ignored him mostly. He was just another dishwasher trying to make ends meet. But Taeyang was not human at all. He was something far older and far more powerful. He was the Dragon Monarch, ruler of the Celestial Dragon Empire, one of the 5 supreme powers in the known universe. His true form was pure energy shaped like the ancient dragons from Earth's legends. He could take any shape he wanted, and right now he wanted to look like a struggling human worker. Taeyang had come to this place with a purpose. For the past 50 years, humanity had been spreading across the stars faster than anyone expected. They were loud, emotional, and unpredictable. They made alliances with former enemies within years instead of centuries. They broke old rules and ignored ancient customs. The other galactic powers were getting nervous, and Taeyang wanted to understand why these newcomers were so different. Through the kitchen door, Taeyang could see the main dining area. A young woman moved between tables with practiced grace, carrying trays of steaming noodles and dumplings. Her name was Park Hana, and she had worked at the restaurant for almost 2 years. She was 24 years old, with dark hair tied back in a simple ponytail. Her uniform was clean but worn, patched in places where the fabric had torn. Taeyang had been watching Hana for 3 weeks now. Every night after her shift ended, she did something strange. She would collect the leftover bread from the tables, bread that customers had not finished. She wrapped the pieces carefully in clean napkins and put them in her bag. At first, Taeyang thought she was taking the food home for herself. Many workers were poor and hungry. But Hana always bought herself a small meal before leaving, using her employee discount. So where was the bread going? Tonight, Taeyang decided he would find out. He finished washing the last pot and hung up his apron. He told the kitchen manager he was leaving and slipped out the back door. He followed Hana at a distance, using his powers to hide his presence. She would not notice him unless he wanted her to. Hana walked through the commercial district, past shops selling alien goods and restaurants serving food from 100 different worlds. She moved with purpose, her bag heavy on her shoulder. She did not go toward the residential levels where most humans lived. Instead, she headed down, taking elevators and stairs that led to the forgotten parts of the station. The lower levels were darker and dirtier. Broken lights flickered overhead. The walls had not been painted in years. This was where the poorest beings lived, the ones who had nowhere else to go. Refugees from war-torn worlds, criminals hiding from the law, and children who had lost their families. Hana stopped in a wide corridor that smelled like rust and old plastic. A group of children sat against the wall, huddled together for warmth. Taeyang counted 7 of them. 3 were Kixian, with their gray skin and large eyes. 2 were Marathi, small and furry with 6 legs. And 2 were Velnoth, reptilian creatures with sharp teeth and scales. Taeyang felt surprise ripple through him. The Velnoth were enemies of humanity. 20 years ago, they had attacked human colonies and killed thousands of people. The war had ended with a treaty, but the hatred remained strong on both sides. What was a human woman doing with Velnoth children? Hana knelt down and opened her bag. She took out the bread piece by piece and gave it to the children. They grabbed the food eagerly, shoving it into their mouths. They were clearly starving. A small Velnoth girl, no more than 6 years old, looked up at Hana with yellow eyes. She spoke in broken universal standard, the common language most species used. "Why you help us? We are Velnoth. Your people hate us." Hana smiled gently and touched the girl's head. "Because you're hungry and I have food, that's all that matters." The girl stared at her, confused. She did not understand. In Velnoth culture, you only helped your own kind. Showing kindness to an enemy was seen as weakness or stupidity. Taeyang watched from the shadows, and for the first time in 1,000 years, he felt something he had almost forgotten. He felt moved. He had lived for 10,000 years. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had witnessed countless wars and peace treaties. He understood the rules that governed life in the galaxy. Every species protected its own first. You helped your allies second. You destroyed your enemies third. That was the natural order. But this human woman was breaking that order. She had every reason to hate the Velnoth. They had taken her parents from her. Taeyang knew from the records he had accessed. Her younger brother had been crippled in a Velnoth raid. Yet here she was, feeding their children with her own hands, showing them more kindness than their own people had. One of the Marathi children, a little boy with brown fur, tugged on Hana's sleeve. Miss Hana, do you have more tomorrow? I'll try, Hana said. I can't promise, but I'll bring what I can. The Kixian children thanked her in their clicking language. Hana stood up and brushed off her knees. She looked around the dark corridor with sad eyes, then turned to leave. As she walked past Taeyang's hiding spot, she paused for just a moment. She looked directly at the shadows where he stood. I know someone is there, she said quietly. If you want to hurt these children, you'll have to go through me first. Taeyang said nothing. After a moment, Hana shook her head and continued walking. She thought she had imagined it perhaps, or maybe she had been warning off criminals. She disappeared around the corner, heading back toward the upper levels. Taeyang stayed in the shadows, thinking. He had come to this station to study humanity's weaknesses, to understand what made them dangerous or useful. But instead, he had found something he did not expect. He had found something that challenged everything he thought he knew about survival, about strength, about what it meant to be civilized. A human woman with nothing to her name was feeding the children of her enemies. Not for politics, not for advantage, not because someone ordered her to. She did it simply because they were hungry, and she could help. Taeyang remained in the lower levels long after Hana left. He watched the children finish their bread and curl up together to sleep. He thought about the Galactic Unity Council meeting that would happen in 2 weeks. They would discuss humanity's future, whether to accept them fully or put restrictions on their expansion. Many powerful species wanted humans contained. They saw humans as dangerous and unpredictable. Maybe they were right to be afraid, but maybe not for the reasons they thought. Taeyang dissolved into energy and returned to his hidden ship. He had much to think about, and he had more watching to do. One act of kindness could be an exception, a random moment of weakness. He needed to know if this was truly representative of humanity, or if Park Hana was simply one unusual individual. Tomorrow he would continue his investigation, but tonight, the ancient dragon Monarch could not stop thinking about a simple question, asked by a Velnoth child. Why you help us? And an even simpler answer. Because you're hungry, and I have food. Perhaps, Taeyang thought, the youngest species in the galaxy had learned something the oldest ones had forgotten. The emergency alert came through every communicator on New Sol Station at the same time. Taeyang heard it while washing dishes in the kitchen. The announcement was brief and cold. All residents of the lower levels had 24 hours to evacuate. A Velnoth trade delegation was coming to the station, and they wanted those areas cleared and cleaned for their security teams. Taeyang saw Hana's face go pale when she heard the announcement. She dropped the tray she was holding. Dishes crashed to the floor, but she did not seem to notice. She ripped off her apron and ran out of the restaurant without a word. The manager shouted after her, but she was already gone. Taeyang knew exactly where she was going. He quickly followed her, moving through the crowds toward the lower levels. The corridors were chaos. Station security forces in armor were already there, forcing people to pack their belongings. Families were crying. Children were screaming. Nobody had anywhere else to go. The lower levels were the last option for the poorest beings in the station. If they were forced out, they would end up in the cargo holds or worse, thrown off the station entirely. Hana pushed through the crowd until she reached the corridor where the refugee children lived. They were huddled against the wall, terrified. The Velnoth girl that Hana had spoken to before was crying. A security officer wearing the insignia of the Velnoth military was shouting at them to move. You have 1 hour to clear this area. Anyone still here after that will be arrested and deported. Hana stepped forward. They're just children. Where are they supposed to go? The security officer turned to look at her. He was tall for a Velnoth, nearly 7 feet, with dark green scales and cold yellow eyes. His name badge read Commander Zefkor. He looked at Hana with disgust. They should have thought about that before becoming refugees. This area is being cleaned for important guests. These creatures are trash that needs to be removed. They're not trash, Hana said firmly. They're children who need help. Zefkor stepped closer to her. You're human. I can smell it on you. Your species should have been wiped out years ago. You're all weak and sentimental. These refugees are not your problem. They're everyone's problem, Hana said. If we don't help the weakest among us, what does that say about us? Around them, more refugees were being forced out of their spaces. An elderly Marathi woman fell down, and security officers just stepped over her. A Kixian family was being separated, with the father dragged away while his children screamed. The situation was getting worse by the minute. Zefkor laughed at Hana. You want to know what it says about us? It says we're strong. It says we survive. Your people learned that during the war, didn't you? When we burned your colonies, when we killed your weak civilians, we were just following the natural order. The strong take what they want. The weak suffer. Hana's hands clenched into fists. Taeyang could see her trembling, but not from fear. She was holding back rage. He moved closer through the crowd, ready to intervene if needed. He knew Hana's parents had died in the colony burnings. Zefkor was bragging about the very thing that destroyed her family. My parents died in those burnings, Hana said quietly. My brother was crippled in your raids. I have every reason to hate you and your entire species. Zefkor smiled cruelly. Then you understand. We're enemies, natural enemies. So why do you care about these refugee creatures? Some of them are Velnoth. Why would you help my kind? Because I choose to, Hana said. Because someone has to break the cycle. Because if I let hatred control me, then you win. You took my parents, you hurt my brother, but you don't get to take my humanity. Zefkor's smile faded. He seemed genuinely confused by her response. In his culture, revenge was expected, even honorable. Showing mercy to an enemy was incomprehensible. He did not know how to respond to someone who refused to play by the normal rules. You're a fool, he finally said. He reached for his weapon, a plasma pistol on his belt. You're interfering with official security operations. That's a crime. I'm authorized to use force against criminals. The other refugees backed away in fear. The children behind Hana screamed. She stood her ground, placing herself between Zefkor and the children. She did not have a weapon. She did not have armor. She just had her conviction. Then you'll have to shoot me first, she said. Zefkor drew his weapon and aimed it at her chest. If that's what you want, human. Time seemed to slow down. Taeyang saw Zefkor's finger tighten on the trigger. He saw Hana close her eyes, preparing for death. He saw the refugee children crying behind her. And something inside the ancient dragon monarch snapped. He had spent weeks watching silently, testing and observing. He had promised himself not to interfere, to remain objective. But watching this brave, foolish, beautiful human woman about to die for protecting children who were not even her species, something in him changed. Taeyang dropped his disguise. His human form dissolved into pure energy, blazing with light that filled the entire corridor. His true form emerged, a massive dragon made of golden fire and silver lightning. His presence was so powerful that every being in the lower levels fell to their knees. The walls of the station trembled. Alarms blared as the station's sensors detected the massive energy surge. Zefkor was frozen in place, suspended in midair by invisible force. His weapon fell from his hand and clattered on the floor. He could not move, could not speak, could only stare in absolute terror at the being before him. Every intelligent being in the galaxy knew what the Dragon Monarch looked like. His image was in every history book, every diplomatic archive. He was one of the 5 supreme rulers, one of the ancient powers that had shaped galactic civilization. And he was here in the lower levels of New Sol Station. And he was very, very angry. You were about to execute a being whose only crime was showing kindness. Taeyang's voice resonated through the corridor, shaking the metal walls. It was not loud, but everyone heard it clearly in their minds. Explain yourself, Commander. Zefkor tried to speak, but could only make choking sounds. Taeyang released his throat slightly, allowing him to breathe and talk. Your Majesty, I was enforcing station security protocols. This human was interfering with official operations. I have authorization to use force against criminals. She was protecting children, Taeyang said. That is not a crime. That is the definition of civilization. But the protocols, the orders from the trade delegation, are meaningless compared to the lives of these children. Taeyang's eyes blazed brighter. You invoked the war. You bragged about killing her parents. You mocked her loss. And when she responded with mercy instead of hatred, you decided to kill her. Tell me, Commander, who is the civilized one here? Zefkor had no answer. He hung in the air, helpless, facing judgment from a being who could erase him with a thought. Hana had recovered from her shock. She stepped forward, looking up at Taeyang's dragon form with wide eyes. Your Majesty, please, don't hurt him. Everyone in the corridor gasped. Taiyang himself felt surprise ripple through him. She was pleading for mercy for someone who had just tried to kill her. He was going to murder you, Taiyang said. I know, Hana said, but killing him won't make anything better. He's afraid. His anger comes from fear and loss, just like mine could have. He probably lost people in the war too. Violence just creates more violence. Please, Your Majesty, let him go. Taiyang stared at her. This human woman who had every right to demand vengeance was asking for mercy. She was asking him to spare the life of someone from the species that destroyed her family. Even now, even after almost being killed, she chose compassion over revenge. Slowly, Taiyang lowered Zefkor to the ground and released him. The Velnoth commander collapsed, gasping for air. He looked at Hana with complete confusion, unable to understand why she saved him. The evacuation is cancelled, Taiyang declared. His voice carried through every speaker in the station, reaching everyone. These refugees will not be moved. The Velnoth trade delegation can find somewhere else for their security teams. Anyone who tries to force these people from their homes will answer to me personally. The security forces immediately began withdrawing. Nobody wanted to face the Dragon Monarch's wrath. Within minutes, the lower levels were peaceful again. The refugees slowly came out of hiding, barely believing they were safe. Taiyang shifted back to his human form, the dishwasher, Ryu Taiyang. But now everyone knew who he really was. He looked at Hana, who was helping the children calm down. I came to this station to understand humanity, he said to her. I have watched you for weeks. I tested you. I observed your choices, and now I have my answer. What answer? Hana asked, confused. The answer to whether your species deserves a place in this galaxy. The Galactic Unity Council is meeting in 3 days to decide humanity's future. Many species want to contain you, restrict you, perhaps even eliminate you. They fear what you might become. They call you dangerous and unpredictable. Hana looked down. Maybe they're right. We've done terrible things to each other throughout our history. Yes, Taiyang agreed. But you also do something no other species does. You evolve. You change. You choose to be better than your nature demands. I will testify at the council meeting, and I will tell them what I have seen here. He looked around at the refugees, at the children Hana had protected, at the security forces retreating in shame.